as the as well as in charge of the Transfer Student Success program. So I will let her kind of take over.
Thank you, Camelia.
Welcome.
Hi.
I didn't know your title, your official title anymore, so.
I'm not sure I do either, so no worries. Hi, everybody. How are you? As Camelia said, my name is Tiffani Baldwin, and I will be hopefully giving you some pointers for effective public speaking in this presentation. As Camelia said, I am a part-time faculty member in the Department of Communication. I've been teaching public speaking for, gosh, over 15 years, almost 20 years, I think now. I've also been a professional speaker and something else that I just completely forgot. But I have a lot of experience with public speaking myself, doing presentations myself, as well as teaching people effective public speaking skills. And as Camelia said, I also am the coordinator of Transfer Student Success at MSU Denver. So that's kind of my full-time job. My program helps transfer students transition into the university, hopefully as seamlessly as possible. So I will go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen. I posted the handout. I use that term very loosely considering I'm staring at a bunch of pictures on a computer. But I'm posting that I posted that in the chat so that you would have it. And then I'm also going to share my screen and bring it up. And it is what we will follow today. So the first thing I'm going to have everybody do is stand up. So wherever you are, if you are in your bedroom, in your living room, in your dining room, wherever you are, unless you're in your car, I'm going to have you just stand up. For those of you who are familiar with, who do yoga and may be familiar with mountain pose, I'm essentially going to have you get into mountain pose. You're going to stand with your feet about hip distance apart. You're going to distribute your weight evenly through your hips and your legs. You don't want to lock your knees though. And then you're going to stand up tall, shoulders back, belly in. You want to kind of feel your shoulder blades sliding down either side of your spine. And then I'm going to have you place your hands on your belly. So we're going to do, this is what's called belly breathing. And it is a technique that you can use to calm anxiety in all kinds of situations. But we're going to do it now just to kind of get started. So you want to place your hands on your belly. And then what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in through your nose to your belly. So you want to feel your belly expanding. That's why you have your hands on there. As you're breathing in through your nose, you want to feel your belly expanding. You're going to count to 4. I'll do the counting for you as we do this. And then you're going to breathe out through your mouth, again to the count of 4, and you're going to feel your belly sinking in. So I'll do the counting. You just focus on breathing in, feeling that belly go out, and then breathing out and feeling that belly go back in. So let's go ahead and get started. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do one more. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So hopefully you felt that kind of center you. Before we move on, I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. I would love to have some of you come on and take your camera or put your camera on and, oops, what am I doing? Hopefully y'all can see me again. I'd love to have a few of you put your cameras on. I'd love to see your faces and not just pictures. And tell me your name and tell me what brings you here today. What is it? Why do you want to know something about public speaking? I saw a couple cameras. Come on. Do any of you want to tell me why you're here? Hi, Sabrina. Good to see you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sabrina, and the reason I am here today is just to learn a little bit more about public speaking. I used to not be very confident in it, so I feel like these seminars are a really good way just to, learn a little bit more. So,
Sabrina, you said you used to be. Does that mean you're more confident now?
I am definitely a bit more confident in it now.
And how come? What's helped you build that confidence?
Kind of just learning how to, relax when you're up in front of a bunch of people. Usually what I'll do is that I'll look at the wall above everybody else's head. That way it doesn't feel like I'm talking to people who are staring at me. Also,
Sure.
I just do my best to be prepared for the public speaking part just by making sure, like, either maybe I need some caffeine beforehand, so I'll go ahead and grab something to drink real quick to calm my nerves and everything like that.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Who else would like to introduce themselves and share why they're here today?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Munoz, and I am here today because I'm going into social work. Eventually, I'd like to be a social worker and an advocate of some sort. And I feel like I could really benefit from this. I work for a school district, and I was recently elected second vice president for one of the sub association for the union.
Great.
And so I've had to do some meetings with some legislators, but they've been through Zoom, and it's easier to do that, I feel like, than in person. And I'd like to get that confidence. I'd like to learn how to not sound rehearsed or scripted. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Great, Jennifer, thank you. And I'm going to talk about the handout that I've posted is really based on being in person, but I'm going to talk about how being virtual impacts some of this stuff. So that'll be kind of threaded throughout the presentation, because being virtual does change how you present to a certain extent. And there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember, so I'll try to come back to it if I remember. But thank you very much. Who else?
I can go ahead and share.
Okay.
I'm Nicole. I'm one of the peer mentors, and I am a special education major. So I do a lot of public speaking, but it's to children. And so speaking to children is very different than speaking to a group of peers or parents. And so just developing those skills for me is something I really need, whereas I'm practicing with 5-year-olds, and 5-year-olds aren't very scary.
Sure. And what you're referring to is needing to adapt to different audiences, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you change your message, but you do need to adapt depending on whether you're talking to 5-year-olds or whether you're talking to their parents or other school administrators or teachers or people in the community. Absolutely. Thank you. Penelope, were you going to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Penelope Thurber, and I'm one of the oldest students in MSU. I'm a little over 66 years old. I'm a Vietnam era veteran, and most of my audience has been, like I said, little kids, rhymey, singy, songy type thing. And so as I'm getting older and my appearance is, of course, not very glamorous anymore, I find that people don't want to, listen to me unless I have kind of a gimmick, kind of like I feel like the comedians need to have a gimmick, for us to listen to their jokes or whatever. And me, everybody just thinks, well, this is just this old lady here, and so basically I'm trying to, you know, usually I look a little better with makeup and hair and whatever. I'm just home right now downstairs in my bedroom, but, I'm trying to be an impactful speaker because my life story and my testimony, my military service and whatever is very impacting when people read it. But then sometimes when I speak it or I'm asked to speak it, it's, I'm not very impactful. I'm not, I want to be dynamic enough, and I also want to make sure that my appearance, matches, the dynamics and whatever. It's kind of hard when you get older. So you guys, kudos to you. You have more flexibility than us older folks, but I'm just really interested in perfecting the dynamics of and the impact of my life story.
That's great. I happen to work with people to help them tell their stories. So I love that, that I can hopefully help you a little bit learn to speak your story. And something you said reminded me what I also wanted to say, or make a comment about with Jennifer's, how when she introduced herself, and that is the idea of extemporaneous speaking, where you don't sound you know exactly what you're going to say, you've practiced it, you've prepared, kind of like you're saying, Penelope, with your story, right? There's probably so much of your story that you just know, it's memorized, you know it, but learning how to deliver it in what we call an extemporaneous way, which makes it seem kind of off the cuff and spontaneous and conversational, even if it's not. So I think that may be something that could help you in the delivery, is aiming for kind of an extemporaneous delivery, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And I would just say, don't discount yourself because of your age. Your age is part of who you are and what makes you special. And so I think that learning some techniques to become a better speaker will certainly help. And just don't discount yourself because of age.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm so excited to have one of the oldest students at MSU with us. I think that's phenomenal. That's great. So welcome. Okay, let's take one more person. Who else would like to introduce themselves and say why they're here today? Anyone? Bueller? I see three people on my screen who haven't talked yet, and so I may call on you. I may put you on the spot if no one volunteers. Okay, Danielle, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay. Hi, I'm Danny. I'm also one of the peer mentors here, and I'm here today mainly just kind of like Nicole mentioned, I'm also an education major. So I kind of just want to learn how to really, I guess, hone my public speaking skills. Like I'm pretty decent at it already because I have to be with teaching, but there's still some things that I need to work on with my public speaking. So for example, I think one of those is slowing down when I speak because I've been told I'm a very fast talker. So I just need to learn to pace myself a little bit better. So I just kind of want to learn how to calm my nerves, I guess, because I talk way too fast sometimes, apparently.
That's super common. People, when they get nervous, people tend to speak really, really fast. And so you get up in front of a group of people, and all of a sudden what took 5 minutes when you practice takes 2 minutes because you're going so fast. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in terms of anxiety management. One of the things that that I want to really drive home today is some tips for anxiety management, because that tends to be the biggest block for students. And all the other stuff is important, of course, but if you know how to manage the anxiety, all the other stuff is a lot easier. So thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. Welcome. Glad to have you here, especially virtually on a cold, icky day in the summer. Like, what is going on here? I'm going to go back and share my screen. Can everybody see the handout again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So like I said, we're going to start with talking about anxiety management because anxiety is normal and just about everybody has it when it comes to public speaking. And some people have it more, some people have it less. But even me, for example, like I said, I've been teaching this class for a very long time. I have been a professional speaker in front of audiences of hundreds. And do lots of little presentations on a regular basis. And I still get nervous sometimes before presentations, especially new ones with a new group. And so, so just knowing, I think, that anxiety is normal is a good start to trying to manage it. One of the things I like to share with people, and some of the peer mentors who have been at this presentation with me before may remember this. But some of you may be familiar with Jerry Seinfeld and his show Seinfeld, which was funny. Jerry's a comedian, and he has one of his routines includes talking about the fear of public speaking, because there's a lot of research out there for decades now in America. People have done research on what Americans' biggest fears are. And continually, every time this research is done, it comes back that Americans are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. So Jerry Seinfeld's little routine is that at a funeral, Americans at least, would rather be in the box than delivering the eulogy. And so again, something that is just very, very normal and very well known that this is a very common fear. So the more that we can learn to manage it and come up with strategies and exercises to be able to sort of channel that energy or that anxiety into a more productive energy is going to be really helpful for speeches. Planning for the worst case. The reason that I put this here for anxiety management is because you want to think about, I do this exercise in my public speaking classes with students. I have them write down, what is the thing that scares them the most? And sometimes there are several things, but what's the biggest thing? What's the thing that scares you the absolute most about speaking in front of a group? And then, so identify that, and then think about, how will you handle it if it happens? So I'll give you a couple examples from students. Sometimes students say that their worst case would be passing out in front of the audience. That would be pretty scary, right? And so I encourage students, well, think about what you're going to do. And so, for example, I have a lot of students who are afraid they're going to hyperventilate and then pass out. And so I have brought a paper bag with me to classes, and I tell students, I've got a paper bag. If you've got to start breathing into it, I've got you. Don't worry about it, right? And so they know that there's some kind of, and some students bring their own, but I tell students I'll bring it. And so they know that their worst case, that there's going to be some kind of solution or a way to handle it. Sometimes people really worry about shaking, visibly shaking, because a lot of people shake when they get nervous. And so one way to help with this is I always recommend having notes with you when you're giving a speech, but maybe you leave the notes sitting on a podium, or maybe if you need to hold them, don't do it on a piece of, like a regular piece of paper that's going to, if you shake, the paper is going to kind of rattle back and forth, right? So in that case, you could use note cards because they're thicker. So it's not going to kind of rattle and make that same kind of noise like a normal piece of paper would. Another one people talk about, a lot of it tends to be the more visible signs of anxiety. So people often talk about being worried about sweating because people sweat when they get nervous. I'm definitely one of these people. And so I always share what I do, which is for presentations that I'm nervous about, the beginning of classes, I'm always nervous at the start of a new semester because it's a new group of students. And so I wear clothes that are not going to show my sweat stains, right? If I'm sweating in the armpits, I'm wearing black or I'm wearing something that is not going to show that. So I don't have to worry that if I'm lifting my hand to write on the chalkboard, people are going to go, oh, gross, disgusting, her armpit's wet, right? I may know it, but nobody else is really going to see it. So again, just really thinking through what's the worst possible thing that you think can happen, and what are ways that you can either try to prevent it from happening or that you can handle it if it does happen. That's a great thing in general for anything that any of your fears, thinking through what's the worst case and how will you handle it. That just inherently reduces some of the fear around it, because now you know what you would do. I'm going to come out of this for a minute, and I'm going to share a different handout that I'll also put in the chat. And this is just a handout that I have on speech anxiety. I'm not going to really go through it right now. Like I said, I'll put it in the chat so that you all can have it. But basically it talks about the symptoms of speech anxiety, the physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms. It talks about the reasons for speech anxiety. Remember, a big one is lack of experience and lack of preparation. Preparation is going to go a long way in helping reduce any anxiety that you have and ensuring that you have a decent speech. And then importantly, here are some tips for overcoming that speech anxiety. There are tips for before the speech, during the speech, and after the speech. And so you don't necessarily need to do all of these. You can find one or two that really work for you and you use those. I would recommend looking through all of these and seeing what kind of resonates with you. You'll notice on here deep breathing. That's one of the reasons that I started this presentation with a little breathing exercise. You can do breathing exercises sitting, at home with your camera off, getting ready for if you have to, say, give a presentation in a class or at work. You can do it if you're in the classroom, sitting in your desk. The really nice thing about breathing exercises is you can do them anytime, anywhere, and no one has to really know that that's what you're doing. So breathing can really help a lot. And all of this stuff can help. So like I said, just kind of look through these when you have a minute after I post it in the chat, and see what you can do as you prepare for the speech. There are things that you can do during a presentation. Knowing that you're probably going to feel anxiety is an important thing because it won't throw you off. Some people don't get nervous at all before a speech, but they get nervous the minute they stand up to talk. And then that throws people, right? Because they weren't nervous before, and then all of a sudden they're nervous. And so knowing that you could feel the anxiety before, you could feel it during. Some people don't feel it till afterwards. So just knowing that you may feel it at different times and to different extents. And then during the speech, remembering to breathe, pause, take a drink of water if you need to take a second. One of the important things I say is don't apologize for being nervous, because a lot of times people can't tell that you're nervous necessarily. So you bring attention to it if you say something about it. But a lot of times people will, I have students write evaluations after they give a speech, and so many times in their evaluation, students will say that they were afraid that the class noticed that their voice was shaking, or all these random different things. And more often than not, my response is, we didn't even notice. And so, so your nervous habits are going to be way more obvious to you than they are to the audience. So don't draw attention to them. Then also after the speech, there are things that you can do to continue to manage that anxiety and boost yourself up for doing it again. Be proud of yourself, see what you did well, see where you could improve, vow to improve those things, and really celebrate it, especially if you're really nervous about giving a speech. No matter how you do on the speech, if you get up and give one, give yourself props, right? Celebrate it somehow. Give yourself some congratulations because you've done something that scares you. And regardless of how it went, that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So again, I'll post that in the chat so that you all will have it. And I'm going to go back to the handout. I'll stop real quick. Does anyone have any questions at this point? And I can't really see the screen. So if anyone has questions, feel free to just take yourself off mute and ask.
Tiffany, there's no questions, but there's definitely some comments. Do you want me to read those out?
Oh, sure. That'd be great.
Great. So Danny said, I've gotten through my public speaking anxiety for teaching by imagining that it's a conversation between me and one of my closest friends. It helps to ease my anxiety and help me get a grasp on what exactly I want to say.
Love it. I think that's a great idea.
And then Sabrina said, usually if I'm nervous about speaking, is that my voice begins to spasm. I found this is due to talking to people who I don't know. This is why I look above everyone. That way it doesn't feel like I am being stared at.
Because feeling like, I call it the all eyes on me syndrome, feeling like everybody's looking at you can be very unsettling and nerve-wracking. Are there more, Camelia?
Nope, that's it. Oh, Jennifer did just post, I get nervous and I mispronounce words.
Yep. And that's really common. People who don't stutter normally might start stuttering during a speech. People get their words jumbled. People just forget stuff. You know, you could memorize your speech and you get up in front of a group and half of it could go away. All kinds of things happen. And so as we move on to talk about organization, preparation, and some of the other things, I think you'll find there's some tips and strategies that can help you to try to reduce those things from happening. And a lot of it really has to do with preparation and having an outline of your speech in front of you that you can refer to throughout your presentation to help you if you do mix up words or forget some information. Something that helps keep you on track can really be beneficial. So thank you for all of those comments, and feel free to continue.
Penelope does have one more. My main concern is my body language. My daughter has been my worst critic for this. Body language is not controlled like I want it to be.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that also. We're going to talk about the delivery of your speech, and the nonverbal delivery, which is really about body language. So we'll talk about that. And also for any of you, this is sort of a general, kind of quick and dirty, here's some great strategies and information. Any of you who want to talk things through or could use some more help after the fact, please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. You'll see at the top of this handout is my email address, also my office number, but I'm not there now, of course. But feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help anyone with anything, especially when it pertains to public speaking, because a lot of times people will hear this information and go, oh yeah, this is great. This makes me feel so much better. And then you get to the point where you're actually trying to put a presentation together and you're like, wait, what'd she say again? What am I supposed to do here? How can I handle this? So definitely all of you feel free to reach out to me at any time for any questions, but hopefully we'll be able to give you some good, I'll be able to give you some good tips here. Okay, so moving on from anxiety management, organization and preparation. This is, to me, one of the most important parts of preparing for a speech, because organizing your thoughts and being able to organize your words and your information and your message, all of that's part of the preparation. And I tell my students all the time, and most of them don't listen to me, but the more you practice and prepare, the less nervous you're going to be. I've seen so many students over the years who go, I don't mind giving a speech, I'm going to be fine. And so they procrastinate, they do everything last minute, and then they come into class and not only do they get really, really nervous, but they just don't do well because they really didn't prepare. And those people who are really nervous but prepare inevitably do a much better job, because preparation shows in everything that you do. So first, you want to know what you are talking about, what the context is, where you're doing it, when you're doing it, who your audience is, why, what's the purpose. So knowing all of that, are you putting together a presentation for a class? Are you putting together a presentation for work? Or if you're a teacher, is it for parents? Is it for fellow teachers? Is it for administrators? Is it for people in the community? There's all kinds of different contexts and reasons for why you'll put together presentations, where you'll be giving them. Right now, obviously, most of us are virtual for the most part. And so knowing that you're doing it through Zoom or through Teams or through whatever channel you might be doing it through virtually is important, and knowing some of the different capabilities. You know, like in Teams, we have this chat function where I'm able to post the handouts, right? So just kind of knowing what's available to you in the place or the context where you're going to give the speech. We're going to talk about knowing your audience, because that's very important. And the purpose. I think really knowing the purpose of why you're speaking helps you put things together. And then you want to do your research. I would say, like, I'm going to use Penelope for an example with her life story. Penelope may not have that much research, right, that would need to go into putting her story into a logical, cohesive speech. But for the most part, most people are going to need to do some kind of research for a speech. And that's not to say Penelope wouldn't need to do any research. Maybe she would. Maybe she would need to do some research on who her audience is, or maybe she would need to do some research on maybe specific statistics about female Vietnam vets, you know, in order to give her audience some context about her experience. So there are different reasons that she might need to do research. And for the most part, most people are going to need to do some kind of research for speeches. And then you want to work on putting it together in a logical, cohesive, organized manner, which for most speeches is going to include an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. We talk about in public speaking, we talk about the fact that first, you need to tell people what you're going to tell them. Then you're going to tell them, and then you're going to tell them what you told them. And that sounds very repetitive, but it's important to keep in mind that speaking and writing are two different things. You wouldn't necessarily repeat yourself that much in writing, but that's because people can go back and reread it or look at it again. Go back and reference the writing, right? Which people can't do with your speech. So you need to introduce your speech, talk about what you're going to be talking about, and then in the body, that's the main points of your speech, and then concluding by sort of reviewing what you've talked about. And again, for any of you who would like more information about any of these things, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to get you more information. I also can send you the link. Oh my God, I totally forgot about this. I could send you the link to a free public speaking textbook. If you want a free book, let me know. I'll send you the link. And it's a great textbook. You want to practice. I cannot emphasize enough how much you want to practice, because it is going to help you know your material. It's going to help you see where there are gaps in your information, or where there's too much information or too little information. I think it was Sabrina made the comment about pretending that she's talking to, or was it Sabrina or Nicole, talking to a friend. And one of the things that I always recommend to people is practice with a friend, or practice with a family member, or somebody that you feel comfortable doing your speech or your presentation in front of, who can give you feedback, and they can help you identify those places where you need more information or you need less information, or maybe you need a transition because one point doesn't necessarily seem to follow to the next point, right? You need something that gets you from one to the next. So practicing in front of other people is very, very helpful for all kinds of reasons. You want to get plenty of rest, eat healthy foods, et cetera, all the stuff that that we need to do to take care of ourselves. You want to do when you're preparing for a speech, because you want to be as awake and feeling good as you can when you go into it. You want to be on time, or better yet, early. If any of you have ever been waiting for a speaker, We all know that that can get a little annoying. And so being on time just signals respect to your audience. These are also some tips that were on that anxiety management sheet that I'll put in the chat. You want to visualize yourself doing well. Are any of you familiar? Do any of you do visualization for other things? And again, feel free to take yourself off mute and speak up. Or does anyone know what visualization is and why you would do it?
And just to let you know, there's nothing in the chat around visualization, but everybody would like the link to the book.
Oh, okay. I'll put the link in the chat. Let me write myself a
and
little
actually, Penelope just put in a comment. I like podiums, but I would like to have the TED Talk type body language, being more free on the stage.
Yep, absolutely. Podiums can be a little bit of a, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? A crutch. Podiums can be a little bit of a crutch because people tend to use them to hide themselves. Camelia, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is visualization?
Visualization is being able to kind of put everything aside, like close your eyes and visualize yourself in a situation that you're not currently in. So whether it's a place where you want to be, that provides you with happiness and joy, but you actually close your eyes and visualize yourself doing something or being somewhere where you're not actually physically there.
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of athletes do this. They visualize kind of every step of, let's say, a football game, let's say. So maybe a football player is going, maybe let's say it's a quarterback, right? They're going to picture themselves before the game, feeling ready for it, feeling pumped up, feeling confident, knowing that they're going to go out and they're going to dominate, they're going to do great. They see themselves going onto the field, they're feeling good, their fans are cheering for them. I mean, they just literally, they picture the, very first play, they picture the coin toss, the first play, the second play, first quarter, second quarter, right? They just literally picture every step of the way. And research shows that the more you can visualize yourself doing well, the more likely you are to do well. So picturing yourself getting up, giving that presentation, you've practiced, you've prepared, you get up there, you're confident, you give this knockout speech, you just kill it, you crush it, you do awesome. And then you picture your audience, they're cheering, they're going crazy, they think you're amazing. And then you even picture yourself afterwards and you're feeling really good and people are giving you great feedback, right? It's just really picturing something going well, because that not only helps calm your nerves around it, but it should help it go better in general. Being your own best friend, we all tend to talk to ourselves fairly negatively. We can be our own worst critics, as most of you probably know. So think about if you were getting ready to give a speech and you went to your best friend and you were like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm sure I'm going to bomb it. I'm going to be horrible. I'm terrible at public speaking. Is your best friend going to go, you're right. Like, don't even bother. Just go home. Don't even bother doing it. Hopefully not. Hopefully your best friend's going to go, oh my gosh, you're going to do okay. You've practiced, you prepared, you're going to do it. And even if it doesn't go great, that's okay. At least you did it, right? Your best friend's probably going to try to encourage you and boost you up. So the more we can talk to ourselves as though we're our own best friend, I mean, the better in general, but then the more comfortable I think you'll feel going into speeches. Utilizing visual aids, just like this handout, right? People like to be able to see things. A lot of people are visual learners and they need that as well as the spoken word. Knowing your audience, you want to adapt accordingly. You want to try to build rapport. read nonverbals. Are people confused? Are they bored? Are they overwhelmed? This is a little bit more difficult when you're virtual. Like right now, I'm talking to you all, but I'm just looking at my screen that has this handout on it. So I can't see any of you. So being able to read your audience is definitely more difficult when you're virtual. You still can to some extent, especially when cameras are on and you're able to look at the people. But it's definitely a little bit different when you're virtual. Repeat and or clarify questions. So if you get questions, make sure you repeat them so everybody can answer, and make sure you're understanding the question so that you're able to answer it accurately. Okay, now Penelope, we are getting into some of the delivery of speeches. I'm gonna show you this first. We're gonna talk about vocal delivery, and then we're also gonna talk about physical or nonverbal delivery. And I wanna show you, speaking to Penelope's point of wanting her nonverbals to be really dynamic and engaging. Delivery is a really important part of a speech. Delivery is what people tend to think of when they think of a speech in a presentation. People don't tend to think of organization and preparation, right? When they think of speeches, it's mostly picturing someone up giving a speech. And so how we use our voice is important. There's research that shows that 38% of a message is conveyed with our vocal intonations. We're going to do a little exercise with that. But more than half of how a message is conveyed or received is based on how we use our body. So it's really interesting because we have over half of a speaker's message is going to be relayed through physical delivery. Some of it is going to be relayed through the vocal delivery. Guess what? That doesn't even include the content, right? So people, when audiences are evaluating the effectiveness of a speech, they really are looking more at delivery often than content. I would encourage all of you to pay attention to both, whether you are a speaker or a listener, because content is really what we want, is the whole purpose for somebody giving a speech. But in our society, we're trained to pay more attention to the delivery. Okay, so I'm going to have you all do a little exercise to practice vocal delivery, because anxiety can have an impact on our vocal delivery. It makes us breathe different. It can decrease our oxygen as a result, which also can affect our tone and volume. Our voice might become shaky. And so practicing some vocal exercises can be really helpful, because the other thing people tend to do is people tend to get very quiet when they're speaking in front of a group and nervous. Or the nervousness kind of makes them more quiet. And so being able to project your voice without yelling, you don't want to yell, because that's going to, you don't want to yell at your audience. It's going to turn them off, number one, but it's going to strain your vocal cords, probably give you a sore throat. So you really want to be able to project. So I'm going to have you all stand up for this exercise. Take that mountain posture that we did at the beginning. And we're still going to do the breathing in. And on the out breath, we're going to say the sounds of the 5 vowels, and we're going to get louder as we go. So I'm going to give you an example. And to pronounce them, the A is ah, E, I, O, U. Okay, so to give you an example, what we're going to do is for the A, we're going to breathe in. And then on the out breath, we go, ah. Could you all hear my tone go from quieter to a little bit louder?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So we're just going to do this with each of them, and you can feel it in your throat. You're going to feel, you're not yelling, you're just increasing the volume as you go. So let's all start with A. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. Okay, let's do the E. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. E. How, it's so weird not doing this in person. How's that feeling for everybody?
Weird.
It does feel kind of weird, right? It's super weird not to be able to hear you all and see you all doing it for me. But the more you practice it, the more you'll be able to feel the difference in your throat and the muscles in your throat and how they work. So let's continue. Let's do the I, O, and U. We'll start with the I. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. I. Let's do the O. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. Oh. Good job. And then finally the U. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. Ooh. I know, it's so funny and weird. But again, if you practice these, you're going to start to really be able to tell the difference in how your muscles are working in your throat. And you'll be able to tell the difference between speaking a little bit louder and yelling, right? There's a difference. When you yell, you're really projecting, or not projecting, you're yelling things. But when you're speaking loudly, you're just using your muscles differently in your throat. I think for now, I'm going to skip the ham sandwich exercise, and we'll go through just in the interest of time. But let me tell you about this and the purpose of it. It's an exercise where I have some volunteers come up to the front and I'll give them an emotion and they have to convey that emotion using only the words ham sandwich. And the point of this is to show that the way we say things has an effect on how they sound and how they're received. So if I'm saying, let's say that I'm angry, I might say ham sandwich, right? Like I'm mad. It's coming out with force. It's coming out with emphasis. And that's the tone alone is going to convey to my audience that I'm angry or that I'm upset. Whereas let's say I do it in a happy tone, ham sandwich, right? My tone is a little bit, or my pitch is a little bit higher. And you can tell that I am coming from a more positive emotion than a more negative one. And so the tone really conveys meaning. And it also leads into the physical delivery, because if you try to change your tone of voice to be angry, you're going to notice that your facial expression changes and you'll probably do some kind of body movement that goes along with it. So it's almost impossible for us to separate our vocal delivery from our physical delivery, because our vocal delivery is automatically going to bring in our body, our physical delivery. Okay, so thinking about physical delivery, nonverbals, how we use our body during a speech. The first thing you want to think about is posture. You want to remain relaxed and composed. Practicing mountain pose and breathing can help with this. Part of what you want to do is, just as you're practicing a speech or a presentation, hold yourself upright, shoulders back, belly in, and try kind of moving around and see how that feels. The more prepared you are for your speech, the more likely you will be to hold a relaxed, composed posture, because you can be nervous and have a relaxed and composed posture. But if you're really, really nervous and not very prepared, chances are it's going to be difficult to remain relaxed and composed. Eye contact, and by the way, stop me if anyone has questions, or Camelia, if you see anything in the chat that I should address, just let me know. Eye contact in Western society with American audiences is incredibly important. In American society, we associate eye contact with honesty. So if you think about it, a lot of times parents will say to little kids, look me in the eye and tell me that. The assumption is that if we're lying, we can't look people in the eye, or that if we're avoiding eye contact, we're lying or hiding something. So for American audiences, making eye contact is important. Now, this doesn't mean that you want to stare at one person the whole time, because that's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. But doing that, kind of making the eye contact, but scanning the audience. And as Sabrina said, you don't necessarily have to look people directly in the eyes. You can often kind of skim the tops of their heads, depending on how many people are in the audience, or like Sabrina said, look at the wall behind them, because sometimes looking people directly in the eye can be very uncomfortable, and knowing that everybody's looking at you. So there are ways to kind of adjust that eye contact, but knowing that it's important. Think about yourself when you're listening to a speech. I'm sure you've all had professors who have pretty much talked to their notes or read from a book, right? They may stand at the front of the class, maybe behind a podium, and they never really look at the class. How much do you like those classes? How well do you feel like you learned in those classes? If the professor is looking at you and able to then glance down at notes, but really focused on the class, it makes for a much more engaging class. And then smiling as appropriate. Obviously, you don't want to paste a smile to your face and not have it go away. And you don't want to never smile. But smiling as appropriate through a speech can also be something that creates a more dynamic, engaging presentation that audience members will react very positively to. And so there are these, which I won't have us do right now, but these are some to relax your face, some different things that you can do: facial scrunches, releasing tension in your jaw and in your forehead, to try to kind of relax your face, which is where a lot of your expressions and a lot of the kind of nonverbal is going to come from. And so those are things that you can kind of practice on your own, since we're getting close to being out of time, and I want to be able to let people ask any questions. And I also want to have a minute to put the book link and the anxiety sheet in the chat. And I will say, I know that that isn't a ton of information or strategies about how to use body and your body language, but I think keeping posture, eye contact, and smile in mind is going to take you pretty far. Again, I'm always available for questions or to help outside of this presentation. So please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. I want to leave you with the idea that, or to remember that public speaking really is a skill, just like learning to ride a bike, right? It's something that you need to practice in order to get better at. I think of an example with my daughter. My daughter's doing online school right now, and last week they were practicing with rounding numbers, and she's in 4th grade, and they were rounding thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all the way up to 1 million. And she, at the end of math one day, said, I'm really bad at rounding. And I said, well, are you bad at it, or have you just not learned it yet? She's like, no, I'm bad at it. Well, guess what? This week, she's rocking rounding. She rounded up to 1 million without even thinking twice about it. And so I asked her, I said, would you say that you were bad at it, or would you say you hadn't learned it yet? And she said, I guess I hadn't learned it yet. And I said, what are you going to say the next time you think you're bad at something? And she's like, maybe I'm not. And I said, right, maybe you just need to learn it. And so keep that in mind with public speaking, is the more we do it, And we might have some bad experiences. I've had some not great experiences, but we learn from them all, and we learn from our good experiences as well. So remember to have patience with yourself. Remember to have self-compassion, and just be gentle with yourself, and know that this is a process that you're learning. And if you really want to master it, just keep at it, and you will continue to get better and better each time. Okay, I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to work on getting these things posted in the chat. In the meantime, does anybody have questions for me?
So Penelope, I see your question. I need C2 Hub and Trio credit for this workshop. Can you either confirm that I attended, or can I CC you on the email? Yes, you can either CC Tiffany or myself. We're happy to support, so I'll put our emails in the chat.
Yep, absolutely. I'm happy to confirm. Okay, here's the link for the textbook. And let me get the anxiety sheet, or managing anxiety. I shouldn't say anxiety sheet, managing anxiety sheet. There's that one. Speech anxiety, here we go. Okay, so the link, and you know what, thanks Camelia, I'll put my email in the chat as well. So there's the link to the textbook. It's a great textbook, highly recommend it, especially for msudenver.edu. That looks weird to me.
I have it in there. It's K Bald Y.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No, you're fine.
I don't know why it looked weird when I typed it, and then I looked at yours. It's like, yeah, that's my email. The book is great. I highly recommend people keep public speaking books like forever, because a lot of stuff doesn't go out of date, a lot of the basics, and they can be a great resource for going back to, oh God, what did I need to do? I need to do something with getting my audience's attention. How do I do that again? And you just go back to that part of the book. And then also the speech anxiety. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I'm happy to help anyone with any of this. And thank you so much for having me and for coming today. It's been fun.
Thank you, Tiffani, Dr. Baldwin, for being here. We do have a survey for you to respond to if you want to be entered into a drawing to win a prize at the end of the semester. So please go ahead and do that. Lauren posted that in the chat. And otherwise, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.